My ex stalked me for 15 years, claiming I was her daughter's father. But when I found out there were 5 other men with the same story, we filed a joint lawsuit, and the truth that came out left everyone speechless. I'm 34 years old. I work in construction, and honestly, I need to tell this story because I spent over 15 years dealing with craziness that basically consumed part of my adult life. It's about my ex-girlfriend Jennifer, who insisted the entire time that I was the father of her daughter, Sophia, even though the numbers never added up and she flat out refused to do a paternity test. But it doesn't end there. Because turns out I wasn't the only one she did this to, and when everything finally came to light, it was like discovering you'd been living in a thriller movie that you didn't know you were part of. I guess I should start from the beginning. When Jennifer and I were dating, this was like 19 years ago. I was 21 or 22, working in construction, doing temporary contracts that sometimes took me out of town for several weeks. The relationship with Jennifer was okay. Nothing special, you know. We were young, and honestly, I wasn't thinking about anything super serious long term. One day I left, for a job that lasted between 5 and 6 weeks, something like that. It was a big project in another city, and basically I didn't have much contact with anyone because we were working long shifts, and the internet wasn't like now where everyone's connected all the time. When I got back, Jennifer tells me she's pregnant. I remember that moment perfectly because we were at her apartment, and she had this face of, I don't know, like victory or something, like expecting me to jump for joy. But the first thing I thought was, wait, when? Because I had just been away for almost a month and a half. So I asked her how many weeks along she was, and she said, between 4 and 7 weeks, somewhere around there. And that's when the alarm started going off in my head because, if I had just gotten back and she was already a month or more pregnant, those numbers didn't add up at all. I told her, look, we need to do a paternity test when the baby is born because the dates aren't making sense to me. And that's when Jennifer got all defensive, saying how could I doubt her? That it was obvious the baby was mine, that maybe she got confused about the weeks, all those excuses you hear. But she completely refused to consider the test, and I insisted that if the baby was mine, there was no problem doing it, right? But she just didn't want to talk about it. Anyway, that conversation got ugly, her crying and me basically feeling like they were trying to trap me. After that, I ended the relationship. I told her I wasn't going to continue with this if she wasn't willing to do something as simple as a paternity test to confirm. I thought that would be the end of it, that we'd each go our separate ways. But oh man, was I wrong. Jennifer didn't accept the breakup. Like literally refused to accept it. She'd call me all the time, show up at my work, at my house, telling me we were meant to be together and that I was going to be a dad. Whether I liked it or not, it was super uncomfortable because my coworkers started noticing, and I looked like the bad guy in the story. When Sophia was born, Jennifer started telling everyone that I had abandoned her and my daughter. She said I was an irresponsible father who didn't want to take care of my baby. And the truth is, a lot of people believed her because, you know, the narrative of the abandoned single mother is easy to sell. I tried to explain to some mutual friends what had really happened, but some stopped talking to me anyway. I guess they thought that even if I had doubts about paternity, I should be there for the baby just in case. But I wasn't going to commit to raising and paying for a child that probably wasn't even mine, especially when the mother refused any form of verification. The following years were, literally, a nightmare. Jennifer started showing up everywhere with Sophia. If I was at the grocery store, suddenly, there she was with the girl, saying things out loud like, "Look, Sophia, there's your daddy. Say hi to him." Or, if I was with friends at some restaurant, she'd show up out of nowhere, sit at our table without invitation, and start acting like we were a happy family, having a casual reunion. It was disturbing, you know what I mean? Because I had no relationship with this woman or this child, but she was creating this false narrative in public where I was the absent, bad father. I had to get restraining orders, which was a whole process. I got the first one when Sophia was like 2 years old. After Jennifer showed up at my house like 10 times in a month, knocking on the door at all hours, leaving the baby's stroller outside like it was my responsibility. The problem with restraining orders is they have to be renewed every 2 years. So basically every 2 years I had to go to court, present evidence that she was still harassing me, and request the renewal. It was exhausting. honestly, because I felt like it was never going to end. During all this time, like 7 or 8 years after Sophia was born, my friend Kevin tells me one day, "Hey Tyler, do you remember Jennifer?" And I'm like, "Kevin, how am I going to forget Jennifer if she's been screwing up my life for years?" And he tells me, "No, it's that I need to tell you something weird." Turns out Kevin had an acquaintance, a guy named Ryan, who was going through exactly the same situation as me. Jennifer had been dating Ryan at the same time. She was dating me, or shortly after, the timelines were confusing, and she had also told Ryan that he was Sophia's father. Ryan had also asked for a paternity test. Jennifer had also refused, and he had also ended the relationship. And Jennifer had also been harassing him for years, showing up with Sophia saying she was his daughter. When Kevin told me this, I was like, "What?" I mean, processing that you weren't the only one in this situation was super weird. I felt relief because it meant Jennifer was clearly lying, but I also felt rage because this woman had been playing with multiple people's lives for years. Kevin put me in touch with Ryan, and when we talked, it was like looking in a mirror. We had the same stories, the same harassment tactics, the same restraining orders being renewed every 2 years. It was like Jennifer had an operations manual she followed with each of us, but it didn't end there. After talking to Ryan, we started asking around, discreetly, if anyone else knew someone who had had problems with Jennifer, and more men appeared. A guy named Brandon told us that Jennifer had contacted him when Sophia was like 5 years old, telling him he was the father, and that Brandon had given her money for months, believing it could be true, until he finally also asked for a test, and Jennifer disappeared. There were at least 2 or 3 other guys with similar stories. Basically, Jennifer had been going from man to man, telling each one he was Sophia's father, getting money from some, attention from others, and creating this chaos for over a decade. When we realized the magnitude of all this, Ryan, Brandon, and I, along with a couple of the other guys, decided that enough was enough. We contacted a lawyer and filed a case together against Jennifer. The idea was to legally force her to do paternity tests with all of us at once, and if none of us turned out to be the father, then there would be legal evidence of her deception so she would stop harassing us. The legal process was long, like a year or more, waiting for court dates, gathering evidence, all that bureaucratic stuff that never ends. Finally, the day of the hearing arrived. Jennifer showed up with Sophia, who by then was like 13 or 14 years old, like she was already a teenager who was clearly confused about what was happening. Jennifer kept insisting there was no need for tests, that she knew who the father was, meaning me, according to her, and that this was a coordinated attack by men trying to avoid their responsibilities. But the judge didn't believe her at all. After hearing testimony from 4 or 5 different men, all with almost identical stories, and seeing all the restraining orders and evidence of harassment, the judge ordered mandatory paternity tests for all of us. Jennifer had a breakdown right there in court. She started screaming that this was unfair, that we were conspiring against her, that we were traumatizing her daughter. Sophia was crying. I felt bad for the girl because she wasn't to blame for any of this, but at the same time, I felt this mix of relief and anticipation because we were finally going to have real answers. The tests were done like 2 weeks later. We all went to a lab. They did the cheek swabs on us, Sophia too, and they told us the results would take between 1 and 2 weeks. Those weeks were eternal, honestly. Part of me was 99% sure I wasn't the father, but there was that 1% of doubt that eats away at you. You know? Like, what if I'm wrong? What if somehow the timing did match and I had gotten confused? That uncertainty is horrible. When the results came in, the judge read them at another hearing. I was not Sophia's father. Ryan wasn't either. Brandon wasn't either. The relief I felt was immense. Like I physically felt like they lifted a 15-year weight off me. But I also felt rage because this woman had wasted more than 15 years of my life with her lies and had done the same to multiple men. And worst of all is that she had used her own daughter as a tool for her manipulations. Jennifer had another massive breakdown when she heard the results. She started screaming that the tests were wrong, that we had to repeat them, that this was impossible. The judge told her to calm down or she would be in contempt of court. But Jennifer couldn't calm down. She was completely out of control. And then, I don't know what went through her head, but she ran out of the courtroom, got to where I was sitting waiting to leave, and started hitting me, screaming that this was my fault, that I had ruined her life. Obviously, court security intervened immediately and took her away. That same night, Jennifer violated the restraining order by showing up at my house. She was banging on the door, screaming, saying incoherent things. I called the police and they arrested her right there. She spent the night in jail and then had more legal charges for violating the restraining order and for assault in court. I don't know exactly what happened with those cases, because honestly, I was so tired of all this that I just wanted to move on with my life. Like a week after all the court drama, I received an unexpected visit. It was Dorothy, Sophia's great-grandmother, meaning Jennifer's grandmother. Dorothy was an older lady, like 75 or 80 years old, very elegant and polite. She told me she wanted to apologize on behalf of the family for everything Jennifer had done. She explained that she had never known the full truth of the situation, that Jennifer had told her I was the father, that I had abandoned them, and that Dorothy had been financially supporting Jennifer and Sophia all these years, believing that story. But after the court case and the test results, Dorothy realized that Jennifer had been lying about everything. She told me she was going to cut off financial support to Jennifer and that she was in the process of getting full custody of Sophia because she didn't trust that Jennifer could raise the girl appropriately after all this. I felt bad for Dorothy, honestly. It was obvious she had also been a victim of Jennifer's lies, and she was trying to do the right thing now that she knew the truth. I thanked her for coming and wished her luck with Sophia. Dorothy did get custody, and from what I heard, Jennifer was basically left without resources because Dorothy was the one who had been paying for everything. Like a month later, I received a letter. It was from Sophia. In the letter, she apologized for everything, told me she had never really understood what was happening, that her mom had told her all her life that I was her dad and that I just didn't want to be with them. But now that she knew the truth, she felt confused and betrayed. She told me she didn't know who she really was, that her complete identity had been a lie, and that she didn't know how to process all this. The letter was heartbreaking, honestly. This girl, well, already a teenager, had spent her whole life believing something that wasn't true, and it wasn't her fault at all. I wrote her back, telling her she had nothing to apologize for, that she hadn't done anything wrong, and that I hoped she could heal from all this with time. I thought that was where it all ended, that I could finally close this chapter of my life and move forward. But like 2 years later, Sophia contacted me again. By then, she was like 16 years old. She wrote to me saying she had been thinking a lot about who her real biological father was and asked me if I could help her figure it out. She explained that her mom, Jennifer, still refused to tell her the truth, insisting that I was the father despite the DNA tests, and that basically Jennifer was living in a state of complete denial. Sophia wanted real answers and thought that maybe I had information that could help her. Honestly, I didn't know if it was a good idea to get more involved in this situation. I had worked hard to emotionally distance myself from all the Jennifer drama. But at the same time, I felt empathy for Sophia. She was an innocent victim in all this, had grown up not knowing her real father because of her mother's lies, and deserved to know the truth. So, I told her yes, that I would try to help her with whatever I could. The first thing we did was try to reconstruct the timeline of Jennifer's pregnancy. Sophia had some old photos of her mom pregnant with approximate dates. Dorothy also helped us with information about when Jennifer had met different people. It was like putting together a complicated puzzle, but eventually we started identifying who might have been with Jennifer during the right time of conception. There was a guy nobody had considered before, a man named Matthew, who, according to Dorothy, had briefly dated Jennifer just before I came into the picture. Matthew appeared in an old photo that Dorothy found, a photo from a family barbecue where Jennifer was with him. Finding Matthew was difficult. Like 17 years had passed, and he had moved out of state. But with some investigation on social media and help from Kevin, who had basically become an amateur detective in this whole matter, we managed to locate him. I sent him a message explaining the situation, hoping he wouldn't think I was crazy. To my surprise, Matthew responded and said he remembered briefly dating Jennifer many years ago, but that she had suddenly disappeared and he never knew why. We explained everything to him, about Sophia, the lies, the paternity tests with multiple men, everything. Matthew was skeptical at first, but agreed to take a DNA test. The results came in like 3 weeks later. Matthew was Sophia's biological father. When Sophia found out, she didn't know whether to be happy, or angry, or sad. I think she felt all those emotions at the same time. She finally had a real answer after years of uncertainty. Matthew was also in shock. Like he had just discovered he had a teenage daughter he didn't know existed. But to Matthew's credit, he decided to meet Sophia and try to build some kind of relationship with her. They met for the first time like a month after the results, with Dorothy present so Sophia would feel safe. From what I heard later, the meeting went well. I mean, obviously awkward, because how is a situation like that not going to be awkward? But they both wanted to try. Jennifer, predictably, refused to accept the results. Sophia told me that when she told her mom about Matthew and the DNA tests, Jennifer insisted the tests were wrong, that I was still the real father, and that Matthew was part of the conspiracy to make her look bad. It was sad, honestly, to see how Jennifer preferred to live in her alternate reality instead of accepting the truth. Sophia eventually had to accept that her mom probably was never going to admit what she had done, and that her relationship with Jennifer was going to be complicated forever. Today, like 3 years after all that, Sophia has a decent relationship with Matthew. It's not a perfect movie-like father-daughter relationship because he missed her entire childhood, but they're trying to get to know each other and build something. Dorothy continues to be the stable figure in Sophia's life, and Sophia is basically a young adult now trying to navigate all this trauma her mother caused her. Jennifer is still out there. From what I heard, she now lives alone and still insists that I abandon my daughter, telling that story to anyone who will listen. But it doesn't affect me like it used to. I have the legal documentation that proves I'm not the father. I have my peace of mind, and I can live my life without the weight of her false accusations. I guess what stays with me most from all this is the lost time. It was over 15 years dealing with harassment, restraining orders, constant stress, and damaged reputation because people believed I was an irresponsible father. And to think that Ryan, Brandon, and the other guys also went through the same thing. It's like, how much energy and lifetime did we collectively lose because of one person's lies? I can't even calculate it. But at least now there's peace, there are answers, and Sophia finally has the chance to know her real father and build her identity on truth instead of lies. That has to count for something, right?